Hi there viewers, and welcome to this week's Earth Watch or Planet Watch for March the 29th through to April the 6th 2012 using Carl Jung's Psi cards. Just a quick review from last week's reading. We had the cards that came out were Voyage, the Tower, Union and Money. Now, under the Voyage one, it depicted a boat under sail on the ocean in quite rapid sail with its, or rapid motion. Its sails were full of wind. And when I think about it now, the Voyage card did depict energy to do with water on the planet and seas or oceans, but it also depicted boats, obviously. I kind of didn't think about that straight away. But we had a lot of unusual boat activities during the week. The Costa Concordia, they found another 5 bodies in the rear part of the boat. That's the big Italian cruise liner that sank off the coast of Italy. There was a marooned or abandoned fishing vessel found floating in the ocean a year after the tsunami, and it was one of the missing Japanese fishing vessels that were involved in the big tsunami a year ago, so that was found last week as well. And the Volvo round the world yacht races had sailed into incredibly heavy, tumultuous seas that caused a lot of damage to the boats and the sailors. It was a very difficult week for them. They couldn't even perform their normal routines on board. They couldn't sleep, they couldn't eat. So they had a lot of trouble this week in that race in particular, damage to boats and broken bones to people along with other things. So it was a week of interesting activities to do with boats and the sea. And we also, when we come and look at the Tower and the money cards from last week, I suggested that that might be something to do with the earth and houses and things shaking. And indeed we did have quite a lot of earthquakes last week, and there were some really large ones, over 7 on the Richter scales. So that kind of married up with that. It did show us that there was a lot of earth activity in the way of earthquakes. So if we look forward to this week's cards here, we've got the Fool, the Tower, the Tree, the Beast and the Wheel. Now if we start off with the Fool, that involves people again, so I think there's going to be some involvement of people in the planet. That person, the Fool, is on a bit of a journey, and if you look in the background, that's a cliff. There's like a little house in the picture and it's almost hanging off the cliff. So it would appear, in my mind, I'm thinking, is there something to do with falling or slipping involved of some sort? And the Fool is, again, it's a person who's not particularly watching all the circumstances or the surrounding area, so it's a little bit of a sudden occurrence that happens because then it's not being fully monitored or watched. The next one is the Tower, which we had last week, so we'll stick with that meaning, which I believe was houses or buildings being shaken around a little bit. We'll probably sit with that. I did also mention it could have a relationship to being sitting up high on the top of a hill, might have been a safer place to be. We get to the Tree, and we obviously pretty much have to go with exactly what that is saying. So where that's talking about the nature of plants on the planet, to do with trees or something along that line. I'm wondering, has it got something to do with forests? If you look, this tree sort of seems to have an autumn look to it, as if those are autumn leaves. So then I would think, is that southern hemisphere, something to do in the southern hemisphere? The Beast, I'm thinking we've got to consider that it has something to do with animals, because that is an animal on the card. It does, the card itself states that it's to do with fear, animals, or base instinctual gut feelings or activities. So I'm thinking when they mentioned the word base, I'm thinking, could it have been, when we say base, then I think of volcanoes, because they're kind of the base of the planet. They form the base of the planet and they're very active. So could it have something to do with volcanic activity and animals involved? So these two cards, I feel, are a little bit tied in together. So do we have some sort of activity that relates to animals and forests all in one, that are somehow tied? And the final card, the Wheel. The Wheel is known to be cyclic. or persistent or repetitive. And we see here it does have water in the card as well. I'm not entirely sure. The wheel, it's suggesting something cyclic in nature that is repeating itself, so a repeating pattern. So we see a little bit of movement for the week coming up, maybe a few more earthquakes unexpected or reasonably sized ones, perhaps some sort of movement for things that fall or trip, involving some people that fall off something, slide away, and something to do with trees and animals, maybe a disturbance of some sort there for them that could be quite sudden or unnecessary, I was going to say, but of course any of these changes that we're looking at are most likely going to be unnecessary or unwanted. Okay guys, that's all for this week. Heads up on that. Thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Any comments I greatly appreciate. Have a great week everyone. Catch you another time.